evening everyone and welcome to another amazing episode of Smash TV. Today we are sponsored by the amazing Redbubble store of Mansmat and Moloch, who is offering over 200 designs that can be put on all kinds of nifty t-shirts, clocks, hats, cups, towels and other stuff, printed and delivered to your home so you too can be cook as fuck with a custom design. Bragging rights over 9,000 fellas. Pay a visit to the store. The link is in the description. And now, back to movies and series. Persian Lessons portrays a Jewish man from Antwerp, Belgium, being picked up by the evil Germans from World War II, ready to be shot in some forest. He uses his quick wit and survival instinct by saying he is a Persian, something one of the commanders in the nearby camp just happens to need. What follows is the desperate struggle of a man pretending to be fluent in a language he does not know at all. We follow him trying to stay alive, inventing an increasingly large vocabulary, dodging suspicious and hateful guards, wrestling with his conscience as group after group of fellow prisoners are hauled off and killed. Persian Lessons is one of those typical horrors of World War II stories where not so regular people perform amazing feats to survive the slaughter of the Nazi regime. All I could find about the reality of this movie is that stories of such feats exist and that this is just another story based on those. Regardless, it's an effective movie portraying the duality of mankind both on a personal level as well as a larger scale, especially the ending, which deals another blow to all those who stood by the sidelines, both those in the movie and those watching. Check that. The Lodge easily fits in the not quite hereditary type of movie where two kids who just had to deal with the divorce of their parents, their dad's new girlfriend who just happens to be a survivor of a death cult, and something else that I won't spoil at the moment, that go on a winter trip to a cabin by the lake, or, to be exact, a lodge by the lake. Stuff happens in that lodge as you might expect, cause let's face it, being alone in a secluded place with a survivor of a death cult is a bit on the edge. But what exactly is going on? And more so, by whom, or by what? As you might also expect, things escalate and the conclusion, to say the least, is fairly shocking. The Lodge isn't the best of the hereditary clones, but it's effective enough to keep you hooked till the end. I read a lot of reviews claiming the movie is too slow and the ending is stupid, but I disagree. Saint Maud is a much slower movie with a much more agreeable ending than The Lodge. I enjoyed The Lodge and it once again balances the paranormal with the psychological pretty. I do agree that it steals a little bit from Hereditary by using the dollhouse idea, which, in my opinion, was completely unnecessary and the main reason for people to dislike this film. Smash that. Peanuts, also known as the Charlie Brown and Snoopy Show, was a series of newspaper comics, strips and movies featuring Charlie Brown, a lovable loser, and his beagle Snoopy, whose imagination and intellect creates some very interesting and fun experiences for him and his friends. Charlie Brown and Snoopy were all but forgotten except for people like me who grew up with the delightful and wholesome movies that were shown during Christmas time. But then, Apple decided to buy everything and put it all behind their paywall, Apple TV, so no one could watch it on cable TV anymore. Once again, thank you, Apple, for taking away something that belonged to us all. Thankfully though, they didn't screw up Snoopy and the gang with their new series called The Snoopy Show, a 13-episode series that brings back the whole cast and doesn't change them, or at least I didn't see any changes, and brings back that good feeling I had as a kid watching Charlie Brown and Company. People always call this show nihilistic, and maybe they're right, but I just see a couple of kids with more brains than they should have living their life, being pushed into something better by Snoopy and Woodstock. But I guess I look at it like that cause I'm a nihilist myself in a way. Regardless, the Snoopy Show is enjoyable for the whole family of all ages. Too bad it's locked up behind the dreaded Apple TV paywall. Fuck you, Tim Cook. Fuck you to hell. Smash that. Arlinta, you're also known as Inside, starts with a car crash, leaving a pregnant woman in a life-threatening situation for both herself and her unborn child. killing the guy in the process because we don't need him for the plot. A weird and rude woman intervenes in the hospital and it's quickly shown that she is not at all who or what she appeared to be. Shit truly hits the fan when she arrives at our main character's house and horror tropes are used and abused. Arlinta Yor is one of those movies that is called shocking. And yes, it is shocking. It's not a hard thing to do if you combine horror and a pregnant woman with an unborn child. The movie is needlessly graphic, often showing the baby in distress inside of the womb, but against all normal odds both survive the most horrendous torture and fear, and more so, the incredible stupid way the main character reacts to her adversary and what is happening. Not only her but everyone in the movie just acts stupid, a horror trope. Yes, but goddamn, you're being chased by a maniac for fuck's sake. You're pregnant. Fight the fuck back. Arlinta Yor was a disappointment and a quite annoying movie for me. It even got worse with the ending. This is all just to shock and nothing more. Drop that. Megan is Missing is a low-budget indie movie that proclaims to be the true story of a girl that gets kidnapped after dealing with someone on the internet, and that indeed is something that happens, but we first spend large parts of the movie with a couple of teenagers who just saw Kids and 13 and try to act like the characters in those movies. Unfortunately, neither the acting nor the writing are as good in this movie as they are in those, so it all falls flat. There's only so many times you can hear an underage teen talk about and do sexual stuff before you want to turn it off. Things get even worse when the main character actually gets kidnapped, after which we are served with some very badly done news flashes. As if the found footage style of the movie wasn't bad enough. This dreadful movie wanted to make a statement about child trafficking and abuse, but does it in such a bad way you'll be disgusted by the idea that someone thought this was a movie worth making, let alone releasing. There's rape and torture thrown in there, but even that, well, you either do it or you don't. You don't half-ass it in a movie that attempts to teach or shock. Maybe the most excruciating thing, even after all that, is the fact that the ending of the movie is a still shot of a guy digging a shallow grave for 12 whole minutes, while someone is wailing and pleading for her life. Sorry to spoil the movie for you fellas, but sincerely, don't watch this crap. Drop that. Cyst is a short indie movie about one of those pimple-popping doctors who proves to be a bit more evil genius than your friendly cable or whatever the fuck channel you watch those awful shows on where doctors pop pimples. Something I do not get at all. Why would you watch someone press pus outside of someone's body? Why? But this is a horror movie, so that's something different. Cause movies aren't real and that's why you can get away with it. There's also a story behind that pimple popping instead of the story of a person who had a pimple that grew too big. No, this pimple becomes a sentient killer after the evil genius doctor tried to remove it with an experimental laser. In true 50s pulp sci-fi way, the pimple grew with each victim it achieves to kill, becoming an almost unstoppable force of death, destruction and puss. Cyst is a fairly enjoyable movie that doesn't gross out too much. I thoroughly enjoyed the 50s sci-fi camp, but it would have been better to make this into an episode of some series, cutting out some of the bullshit scenes and making it a wee bit more condensed. As is, Cyst is okay, but it could be better, even though it has Eva Haberman from the cult classic series Lex. Check that. Even though Clint Eastwood is not the main character in this movie, but you could clearly see that this actor would quickly become a star in his own movies by watching this 1958 Western Ambush at Cimarron Pass. Ambush at Cimarron Pass brings together a decimated group of Union soldiers carrying some new weapons to an outpost who are confronted by a bunch of former Confederate soldiers. Tensions rise between the two factions, but a common enemy, in the form of bloodthirsty Indians. The Native American type, not the Indian type, who wish to claim the weapons for their own. Of course, there is also a damsel in distress who is more trouble than she appears to be. Cause back in those days the women were strong and did things for a reason, using their sex appeal and wits to get what they want. You know, what women do most of the time, except in movies. Or so they claim. Ambush at Cimarron is a relic from its time. It doesn't break any ground for the new modern viewer, but it's an enjoyable old black and white western with a young and fledgling Clint Eastwood slowly breaking through in Hollywood. Check that. More Clint Eastwood with Play Misty for me, where Eastwood, as a late-night radio host, has to deal with an overzealous fan who, as the movie progresses, becomes a wee bit much to handle, even for Eastwood, who plays the gentleman's man's man trying to deal with a crazy woman and balance an old love at the same time. Play Misty for me is effective as a film and is quite an enjoyable watch. All the actors do a good job and it's a competently made film with a kick-ass soundtrack. There's not a lot to say about Play Misty. It's just a good movie that's great for a night you want to have, a movie that has sex, tension, romance, excitement, a bit of action and a little terror. Beautiful cast, some nudity, great actors. Just watch this, you won't regret it. Smash that. M. Night Shyamalan was once hailed as the big new thing in cinema, and then he failed a couple of times and no one took him seriously anymore. On top of that, he also enjoys inserting himself in all of his movies, and in Old he is the bus driver bringing the main cast to its doom. If you have not seen the trailer for Old, then you're better off than if you actually did see the trailer, cause that reveals the best mystery of the movie. Such a mystery, however, that the characters in the movie don't appear to get it for most of the film. Kind of like those films where they don't know what zombies are or what to do with them. I'll try not to spoil what it is about during this recommendation. Cause it's quite hard not to. A group of people on vacation are sent to a secluded beach and weird things start happening. People die, people go insane, people have medical conditions. Some people are way too skinny from the start and have something happen to them that's quite, well, what to say. Old would have been effective if nothing was known all about the movie. The actual mystery of the movie can be found out way too quickly by the viewer. Something which forced Shyamalan Ding Dong to create events that shock the same viewer in other ways to keep their interest. These scenes are scattered throughout and play out whenever you start rolling your eyes and want to go do other things. So you have at least that going for it. In short, Old is a typical Shyamalan movie, not his worst, but definitely not his best. Watch it with your friends for a good laugh and some screams. Don't forget the tapers and the beer though. It'll definitely improve the experience. Check that. The original Leverage was a series where 5 criminals, a grifter, a thief, a hacker, a bruiser and a mastermind, came together and became a sort of mercenary group taking down all kinds of 1%ers and evildoers who screw with less fortunate people. It was as close to the A-Team as you could get, and an amazingly well done series with comedy, action, morals and everything else you would expect. It was the American version of another excellent series about grifters taking arms against crooks called Hustle. Leverage ended quite nicely, wrapping a bow around everything, so it was much to my surprise that 9 years later they came up with a sequel called Leverage Redemption. All of the cast, except for the mastermind Nathan Ford, returns. Well, not really, cause the hacker only appears in 2 episodes of the 16, making this all feel like a little cop-out. The hacker gets replaced by a younger female version of himself, his niece. And this is the only thing that is truly annoying about the series. I'm very glad that they didn't go woke in this sequel, except for 2 episodes where this poor lass proclaims that her generation has had it so bad with debt, seeing the 2 towers fall and a couple of other things. Well, let me tell you something, Missy. Everyone older than you who is still alive also lived through that and more. The fact none of the other crew says this to her is completely out of character in my opinion. Plus it's the typical bullshit writing that has been infesting many shows for the past years. Like I said, there are luckily only 2 woke episodes, or intersectional or whatever the correct word for the occasion is, that have the same tired agenda, so it's not a big deal. Not having the full original cast damages this series a little bit. Noah Weil, who plays a sleazy lawyer in search of redemption, doesn't fill the shoes of Timothy Hutton at all, and his character is a bit annoying to boot. Similarly, as mentioned, the removal of Ada's Hodge, who is replaced by the young Elise Shannon, is often a miss, but everything else is pretty much the same really. A good enjoyable family show that has a little bit of everything. Check that. Oh, excuse me, I was drinking from my custom cup bought at the Mansmat and Moloch Redbubble store that is affiliated and owned by this channel and in extension yitsalemons.com. Why don't you get one too? It's nifty, it's cool, it's edgy, it's sexy, it's awesome. And you are awesome too, and I hope to see you again next episode.